objection, I think it's good. Otherwise,
Okay. I'm going to start with sponsors. Maybe by then, Erwin and Zev will be back on. Okay. Learning sponsors, A Year of Learning. Okay. Sue and Ann Gerlich in memory of Malka Perlman and Philip Mann. And Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Yosef ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. And Yerivka Pearl Rosner Bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch. In a memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov. Sarah bat Ephraim. Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Cheryl Sher, her children and grandchildren. In memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva. Marcia Federbush and family. In memory of her husband, Dr. Oriel Paul Federbush, Oriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon. Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends. In memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbas Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan. In memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, and Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gitler, China Bas Yeshaya. Friends of Toby Paris, Saratova Bat Yisrael Dov. Friends of Malka Levi, Malka Bat Yosef. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef Ben Chaim. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom Ben Yitzchak Halevi. We have a month of learning by Mindel and Dave Cheslow in memory of her mother, Shosha Bat Ber Leib, by Carol and Josh Sanborn in memory of her mother, Yita Bat Nachman Binyamin, and by Meryl and Haran Haller in memory of his brother, Yaakov Ben Avraham, as well as a month of learning by Stephanie and Fred Mortman for the refuah shlema of her daughter, Mazal Bat Sarah Malka. Okay. We also today have a week of learning by Judy Iger in memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Mordechai. And that is it. May the Neshamas have an aliyah, Krenker Afil Veta Yishir Shem Ataliyah, and the Chol B'nai Yisrael a good gebenched yar. Okay, and I see everyone and Zev are on.
I just wanted to share my grandson became engaged in Israel yesterday. So it was a double simcha when being in Chicago.
Is he the one getting graduated too?
No, that was a separate one.
Okay.
No, she's only from the 8th grade. So we timed it well.
Very good. Very good. Maybe they waited for the announcement till you got there, you see?
I don't think so, right, Joe?
All right, they waited
I think just the opposite.
There. That's what was important, right?
Yeah, it was good.
All right, much simcha from them.
Oh, man.
Okay, let us just quickly jump in with a quick review. The Gemara had presented the fact, are we saying that something that is an issue of misuse, right? The Ma'ila, is there certain situations where even when it's done with a mitzvah, it applies? And the Gemara said, try to come up with 2 examples. One was Trumat Hadeshin, the other was the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. And then the Gemara continued on Samech Amud Aleph 60a to point out, well, maybe those are exceptions, okay? Because with the example of the garments of the Kohen Gadol, we have a clear statement that it said that you had to leave them, you had to put them, okay, away, implying that maybe they had to be buried, okay? So I'm going to pick up then on, as I said, Samech Amud Aleph, okay? And it's sort of the third line down, okay, on the Gemara, right? Hanicha l'Rabbanan da'amrei hinicham sham. After all, that says that the view of the rabbis that says that the blood water is not subject to me'ilah, okay, is acceptable. Why? Because they could point out to the fact that in the pasuk, right, it says, and you shall leave them there, okay, implying that the four garments, the white garments, are not to be used, okay? Now, that may mean that they need interment, burial, okay? But says the Gemara, hold on a second. Ela Rabbi Idosa, what about the view of Rabbi Dosa? The Amar Bigdei Kahuna, Ru'yin Hen LeKohen Hedyat, that the white garments of a Kohen Gadol, okay, cannot be used for another Kohen Gadol, but they could be used for a general Kohen, right? Common Kohen. My Ikalamema, what do you say then? So the Gemara, it comes now as we continue. Mishum dahave trumat hadeshin ve'egla arufa. Fine, says the Gemara. How about the following two examples? Still the trumat hadeshin, okay, that ash outside the city wall, outside the walls of the Beis Hamikdash, okay, are subject to me'ilah. And what about the example of an egla arufa? Okay, that animal can't be used, right? So, says the Gemara, Shnei Ktuvin Haba'in Ke'echad. Isn't that also an example of two verses from the Torah that come to teach the same halacha, and therefore you can't learn anything further from them? Okay, so, V'chol Shnei Ktuvim Haba'im Ke'echad Ein Melamdin. Clearly, two verses come to teach the same common halacha. We cannot learn a new example from that. Okay. So the Gemara responds. Hanech leman amar ein melamdin ela leman amar melamdin mai ikalamema. Fine. So those that you say you can't learn from two common verses, fine. But what about the fact that there are some who say you could? What are you going to say then? Trei me'ute ktive. Well, Gemara's answer is, in these situations, we have language of the pasuk that puts limitations. What are they? V'samo and ha'arufa. That in the one case, okay, we have a pasuk that regarding the Trumat Hadeshin that says, and he shall put it. Okay, namely the word it implies limitation. Okay, and you can't learn from something else about it. And in regards to the Egla Arufa, okay, where we say it's whose neck is broken, right? What happens? That applies only to that particular animal, to that particular case. Okay, so the Gemara tells us now, Vahani tuate kirai badam lamali. So if you have these two cases, okay, that we say now cannot be used, how do you say this has any relation to the situation of the blood water that we were talking about that flows into the Kidron Valley, right? So Gemara now goes into a somewhat of a side, a note. Chad lema'uti minotar. Okay. In one case, okay, we can say the phrases come to exclude the blood water from the possibility of notar. V'chad lema'uti mime'ila. And in one case, to exclude them from the being subject to me'ila. And we clarify, v'chad lema'ute mituma. And one also comes to exclude them from being subject to being tamei. Now, how is that the case? How is that possible? Okay. After all, would you think that people are going to be drinking this blood water? and therefore they would be over, they would transgress the prohibition of eating dam. Okay, that might be the case. So the Gemara says, aval pigul, but in the case of excluding this blood water, okay, from the prohibition of pigul, lo tzarich lema'ute kra, there we don't need a pasuk to be able to tell us that's the case. It's not, because we have a Braita or a Mishnah that tells us, kol sheyesh lo matirin, okay, any acts, series of acts that are performed with the korban, and as a result of that, okay, it has certain steps, I'm going to say, that permit it, okay, that allow it to satisfy its requirement. Bein la'adam, bein la'mazbeach, regardless if it applies to a person or to the altar. Chayavina lav mishum pigul. It's possible then, okay, that what could happen, that the person might be subject to the requirement of the pigul, okay, of not having proper intent, okay, regardless if it's a person, regardless, we said, if it's on the altar, right? V'dam atzmo matirhu, and the sprinkling of the blood, the collection of the blood, the sprinkling of the blood, these are individual, call them rites, practices, aspects of the process, right? And so therefore, okay, what we're saying is, in this case, right,
we can learn it.
that it's not subject to the question of pigul,
Right.
okay? And therefore, that we might say, therefore, that since it's not subject to pigul itself, the blood, it's certainly any use of the blood water would not be subject to pigul either. Okay? And that concludes that bit of discussion.
So there would be no me'ila, right?
So there would be ultimately, right, again, we see that it justifies, if I can use that term, the position of the rabbis,
Right.
that said that in regard to the use of the blood water, there is no me'ila. Exactly. Okay. Our new Mishnah, okay, is going to, I'm going to suggest it's a little bit, in some ways, more encompassing. We were dealing with all these individual steps, right? And questions about the individual aspects of the Yom Kippur Avoda. Okay, how he went in, where does he do, what about the number of sprinklings, how it's sprinkled on the parochet, how it's sprinkled on the mizbeach, things like that. So this, in a sense, summary Mishnah continues. Matnitin says, our Mishnah, Kol ma'aseh Yom HaKippurim ha'amur. All those, I'm going to say, aspects describing the ritual practices associated with Yom Kippur that we've talked about, al haseder, they are to be done in a particular order, a fixed order. Im hikim ma'aseh lechavero, if one were to advance one aspect to another, right? What happens? For example, hikdim dam sa'ir ladam hapar, if he preceded the sprinkling of blood of the goat to that of the blood of the bull, yachzor v'yazeh midam ha'sa'ir la'acher dam hapar. He has to go back and sprinkle the blood of the goat after the blood of the bull. Ve'im ad shelo gamar et hamatanot shebifnim nishpach adam. Or, for example, let's say it's a situation where he did not finish the applications, okay, of the blood, right? inside, namely in the Kodshe Kadoshim, and the blood spilled, what happened? Yavi dam acher v'yachzor b'tchila mibifnim. He must go back and bring additional blood, okay, and then repeat, okay, what the service was from the beginning inside the Kodshe Kadoshim. V'chein b'hechal, and likewise in the hechal. V'chein b'mizbeach hazahav, and likewise in regards to the golden altar. Shekulan kapara b'fnei atzman, because each one, I'm going to say, is a aspect, a component of atonement in and of itself. Mimakom shepasak misham hu matchil. Okay, so what happens, however? Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shimon disagree, and they say, no, he doesn't have to go all the way back to the very beginning, but it's rather mimakom shepasak misham hu matchil, namely from the place that he was interrupted. Let's say where he started, he did the sprinkling on the parochet in the Kodshe Kadoshim, and then properly. And then as he was leaving the Kodshe Kadoshim, okay, and he was about to do sprinkling on the curtain in the Heichal, okay, the blood spilled. So he doesn't have to go all the way back to the beginning. He picks up where he left off. Okay? Now, the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, Kol Ma'aseh Yom Kippurim Ha'amur Al HaSeder. We said in the Braita that all the activity of Yom Kippur, okay, follows a set order. Im Hikdim Ma'aseh Lechavero. If one action preceded another, okay, and it was not in the order, Lo Asa Klum. It's like he's done nothing. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, Matai, when does this apply? So he's not challenging Tanakama, he's clarifying. Bidvarim haneasim bevigdei lavan mibifnim. When the Kohen Gadol is wearing his white garments and he's carrying these items out inside. Now, inside here means inside both the Kodshe Kadoshim and the Heichal. Avad dvarim haneasim bevigdei lavan mibachutz. But those items that carried out when he's wearing his white garments and he's outside, im hikdim ma'aseh lechavero, ma she'asa asui. So Rabbi Yehuda's view is that if he's outside, okay, namely things like the lottery, or let's say it's like, perhaps designating the particular goat to Azazel, okay? In those cases.
The word confession, which is strange.
All right, okay, are those things? What's done is done. Now, Rabbi Nechemia is going to disagree. Rabbi Nechemia Omer Bamed Varim Amorim, what are we talking about? He argues, B'devarim hane'asim bevigdei lavan, bein mibifnim, bein mibachutz. Namely, it's all those aspects where when the Kohen Gadol is wearing his white garments, regardless if they're both inside or outside. Aval b'dvarim hane'asim bevigdei zahav mibachutz, but those aspects when he's wearing the golden garments and he's outside the Heichal and the Kodshe Kadoshim, ma she'asa asui, what's done is done. So Rabbi Yochanan now comments, U'shneihem mikra echad darshu, namely that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia both really darshaned the same pasuk, namely, V'haita zot lachem l'chukat olam echat b'shana, and this shall be an everlasting statute to you, to make atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. Okay? As we go to the next Amud. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, what's his view? Makom shemit kaprin bo pam echad b'shana. That therefore the phrase once, okay, applies to the place, right? That the place where the atonement is achieved once a year, namely inside the Kodesh Kadoshim. V'Rabbi Nechemya Savar, Dvarim hamitkaprim behem pam echad b'shana. Okay? It's all those Dvarim, all those actions that occur once a year on Yom Kippur. Namely, that would include, right, when he's wearing the white garments, inside, whatever's done inside the Beis HaMikdash, in Kodesh Kadoshim, and in the Heichal. So that would include sprinkling in the Kodesh Kadoshim, sprinkling part of the Heichal, Kaporet, and then the altar as well. Okay. Now the Gemara goes on. Atu the Rabbi Yehuda makom ktiv. Since, I'm going to translate it, since when, regarding Rabbi Yehuda, do we have the idea that the word place is clearly spelled out, is written? Ela hainu ta'amei de Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, maybe, perhaps this is Rabbi Yehuda's thinking and his rationale. Kativ zot, uktiv achat. Okay, we have the word zot. Okay, va'ita zot lachem lechukat olam echat b'shana. That these two words, okay, namely, chad, one of them comes lema'ute bigdei lavan mibachutz, to exclude the white garments when it's outside. The chad lema'ute bigdei zahav, and one comes to exclude the golden garments. Okay? So that is the Gemara's suggestion for a different rationale by Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Nechemia, what does he do? Chad lema'ute bigdei zahav. One does come, he would agree with Rabbi Yehuda, to exclude the golden garments. Chad lema'ute shirayim, the lo ma'akve. That would exclude any leftover blood, right? The remainder of the blood, that it is not something which is ma'akve, that it is not an indispensable part of the ritual. The Rabbi Yehuda, and as far as Rabbi Yehuda goes, im ma'akve, ma'akve, ve'ilo ma'akve, lo ma'akve. Rabbi Yehuda would seem to be implying that if it's a indispensable part, therefore, yes, it has application. But if it's not indispensable, it does not have application. Okay? Now, it goes on with the Gemara. Kedetanya, as taught elsewhere in a Braita, v'chila mikaper et hakodesh. The pasuk saying, and when he has finished atoning for the sacred place. Kila, im kiper, if he's atoned, kila, he's finished. V'im lo kiper, and if he didn't atone, lo kila, he's not finished. Devrei Rabbi Akiva. That's the view of Rabbi Akiva. Amar lo Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbi Yehuda comes back and challenges Rabbi Akiva by saying, Mipnei ma lo ne'amar, okay, or Mipnei ma lo nomar, im kila kiper, v'im lo kila lo kiper. Why doesn't the pasuk just simply spell that out and say, if he's finished, it's atoned, and if not finished, it's not atoned? She'im chiseh achat min hamatanot, lo asa v'lo klum. So that's Rabbi Yehuda's explanation, that if he missed out, okay, on any of the applications of the blood, it's as if he's done none. Va'amrinam, and regarding this we say, my benaihu, So what's the difference between them? Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Okay? The two of them debated this point. Chad amar mashma'ut dorshin ika beinayim. One of them says, okay, that it's the, I guess I would say, the interpretation of the source that is the difference between them. Mashma'ut dorshin. V'chad amar shirayim ma'akve ik beinayim. And the other seems to imply that it's the question of the remaining blood, of whether it's indispensable or not, is what is the difference between them. Okay? The implication being that Rabbi Yehuda would say it's indispensable, Rabbi Akiva would say it's not indispensable. Ve'im amar Rabbi Yochanan hachi, umi amar, Rabbi Yochanan hachi, did Rabbi Yochanan really say that? V'ha'amar Rabbi Yochanan, didn't Rabbi Yochanan actually say the following? Tana Rabbi Nehemiah, kedivrei ha'omer, shirayim ma'akvi. Wasn't there a braita telling us that Rabbi Nehemiah is saying that the remaining blood, by not pouring it out, remember, okay, on the base of the Mizbeach, that is a requirement and therefore it is indispensable? Kasha. That's a problem. So what happens? We don't have an answer. But instead the Gemara goes on. Amar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina now tells us, Ketoret shechafana kodim shchitato shel par. Let's take another example, says Rabbi Chanina, of the question of order. Okay? That the ketoret, the incense that was scooped up, and it was done before the slaughter of the bull. Lo asav v'lo klum. It's as if he did nothing. Keman, according to whom? The lo Rabbi Yehuda. That can't be according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda. Why? The Rabbi Yehuda, because if it were the view of Rabbi Yehuda, ha'amar ki ktiva chuka, since it's written in the pasuk that it's a statute, b'dvarim hane'esim b'vigdei lavan mibifnim hu dekativ. It's similar then, okay, to anything else that was written and requiring the Kohen Gadol to wear his white garments. That's the point. So the Gemara says, Afilu tema Rabbi Yehuda. No, you might even say that it's according to the case is that Rabbi Chanina, okay, holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Sorach pgum kipgim dami. Right? Namely, that he could say that it's an action taken inside is like, right, has the same purpose. Tnan is taught, im ad shelo gamar matnot shebifnim mishpach adam, because our Mishnah said, if up to the time that he didn't finish the applications, okay, inside the blood was spilled, yavi dam acher, he must bring other blood, v'yachzor v'yazeh b'tchila mibifnim, and then he must come back and sprinkle as was done before, right, inside. Ve'im ita, and if that's the case, yachzor v'yachpon mibayele, shouldn't he then have to come back and then also scoop again? Isn't that necessary, right? So the Gemara implies, okay, that perhaps the order of scooping the incense is not ma'ake, right? And we'll go over just a tiny bit. B'ketoret lo maire. So the Gemara's answer here is that that isn't necessarily the proof. Why? Because we can say that maybe he's not dealing with the incense. Okay? In other words, that the whole issue, okay, is not appropriate here of the incense. We're dealing with the order of the blood. And it's the blood that is the focus of the atonement and not necessarily the incense. Okay? However, what happened? Amar Ula. Ula says as follows. Se'ir sheshchato kodem matan damo shel par. We come back then to this issue of blood. A goat that was slaughtered before the blood, all right, before the application of the blood of the bull. Lo asav v'lo klum. It's again as if he's done nothing. It's none. Why? Because we have a Mishnah, Hikdim dam hasa'ir l'dam hapa, that says if the blood of the goat was advanced, so to speak, before the blood of the bull, yachzor v'yazeh midam hasa'ir achar dam hapa. He has to go back and sprinkle, right, the blood of the goat after the blood of the bull. Ve'im ita. What happens? And if that's the case, yachzor v'yishchot mebayile. Maybe he has to go back then and even slaughter a brand new animal, a brand new goat, right? Maybe that's what it should have told us. Targama Ula. And Ula explains it as follows. B'matanot shebehechal. We're talking about the blood applications in the hechal. V'chein amar Rabbi Afis, and likewise, says Rabbi Afis, b'matanot shebehechal. We're also, again, talking about the applications of the blood that are done in the hechal. Okay? So, we're going to stop right there for today. Okay? And we're going to pick up with this question, v'chein behechal, v'chein b'mizbeach. Okay? Where the Mishnah said, okay, argued, okay, that either the order of going around was similar, okay, or the application of the blood was similar. Right? And we'll see what that carries out. And in the end, okay, that will bring us through that will go through 61. And then what happens is we come close to finishing this parak on Shabbos. Okay.
Okay.
Right. And
All righty. Kodesh Tov, everyone. Tomorrow we're starting same time?
Yeah, we'll start at 8:45.
Okay, very good.
Okay, everybody.
Very good.
Have a good day, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone.
Kenny, can I talk to you for a minute, Ken?
Yeah.
Would you do me a favor tomorrow morning? Would you speak to the Gabbai? Ask him to say Tehillim for Tinoket Bat Sarah. That's Shirley's great-granddaughter who was born 2 days ago. She's got some heart problems, and she's had some surgery. So she hasn't had a name yet. So it's Tinoket Bat Sarah.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. Take care. And again,